On any street, in almost any major city, you'll see them. Apple's jewel, the iPhone, 10 years since this from founder Steve Jobs.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
A decade old, 1 billion sold and counting. From finding a ride to finding a route to finding a date, it is effectively a digital concierge.
When Apple released its first iPhone in 2007, people lined up for days to be the first to get their hands on one. 10 years later, there's less enthusiasm for the impact it and other smartphones are having on families. Numerous studies have highlighted how pervasive they are among teens, but it appears parents can't put them down either. According to Common Sense Media, the average American parent spends 7 hours and 43 minutes with screen media per day, and that's just for personal use. Researcher Michael Robb says it's making kids feel they need to compete for their parents' attention.
They feel jealous of their parents' devices because of the kind of attention that parents give to their devices. That's not all kids, and it's not to say that there are not good uses of technology in a household, but finding that balance of online use and quality offline time with your family is really one of the biggest challenges we have.
Studies have shown that parents are also more irritable when they are interrupted while on their devices, causing some to react harshly to their children. Part of the problem is they can't ignore the pings on their phones.
When we actually ask parents about the need to respond immediately to those notifications, about 50% say they feel the need to immediately respond. So there's a lot of, pulls on, a really finite amount of attention that a parent has.
Token is the portable solution to your hectic digital life. Co-founded by Melanie and Steve Shapiro, Token aims to make consumer security faster and easier via partnerships with Microsoft, MasterCard, HID, and Visa. The stylish brand encourages people to live keyless, cardless, and free of passwords. Pay with a wave of your hand at more than 15 million global locations by adding a MasterCard or Visa, knock twice on your computer to authenticate online accounts, tap and go at 50-plus transit systems worldwide.
NATO says it's stepping up defences as the latest cyber attack wreaks havoc around the globe. Thousands of computers have been crippled by a virus thought to have first taken hold in Ukraine.
What's your assessment of the latest cyber attack, including on some member states, and is NATO doing anything additional to protect the members?
We are strengthening the cyber defenses of both NATO networks, but also helping NATO allies to strengthen their cyber defenses. Looking into how we can integrate their capabilities. We have also decided that a cyber attack can trigger Article 5.
Article 5 recognises that an attack on one is an attack on all. The latest cyber strike has seen malicious code lock computers. It's demanded victims pay a ransom in bitcoins or lose their data entirely.
2 years after winding down its military operation in Afghanistan, NATO has agreed to send more troops to the war-ravaged country to help train and work alongside the Afghan security forces. The move comes in response to a request from NATO commanders to provide around 3,000 troops. Speaking ahead of the NATO defense ministers' meeting in Brussels Thursday, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that 15 nations have already pledged additional contributions, and that he expected more pledges later in the day. U.S. and allied forces have been fighting for nearly 16 years against Taliban Islamists who harbored al-Qaeda militants behind the attacks on New York and Washington in September of 2001.
The Secretary General of NATO says the alliance now has combat-ready forces along Russia's border.
NATO's 4 multinational battle groups in the Baltic countries and Poland are now fully operational. A clear demonstration that our alliance stands united in the face of any possible aggression.
Jens Stoltenberg also said NATO's military spending has seen its biggest increase since 2014, reaching almost $46 billion.
The money Jens Stoltenberg is talking about is citizens' taxpayers' money. And my serious proposal would be those who want war and have done such a bad job for 68 years and asking for even more money, they should go and do crowdfunding for their wars, because it's unreasonable to ask taxpayers to pay billions of more dollars and getting less and less peace and less security and less stability.
In a major victory in the fight against ISIS, Iraqi forces recaptured the remains of Mosul's Great Mosque of Al-Nuri. Iraq's military confirmed Thursday troops reclaimed what's left of the destroyed mosque and continued to push through the city. It's a symbolic win for Iraqi forces, who have been fighting to recapture Mosul from ISIS for more than 8 months. In 2014, ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi made his first and only public appearance on video at the historic mosque shortly after his group declared its caliphate. The extremist group blew up the mosque and its famous leaning minaret June 21st as Iraqi forces closed in. Iraqi authorities estimate only a few hundred ISIS militants are left in the city, and officials expect to retake all of Mosul in the coming days. But the victories have come at a substantial cost. Since the battle began in October 2016, the United Nations says hundreds of thousands of civilians have been displaced, and many others are trapped in the city or are being used as human shields.
The Democratic People's Republic of Korea has issued a standing order to execute former South Korean President Park Geun-hye and her intelligence chief over an alleged plot to assassinate the country's leader Kim Jong-un. It was said the plan was conceived in 2005 but was scrapped after Park's impeachment last December. The DPRK demands that the pair be handed over, adding that it would execute anyone involved in any assassination plot against Kim. South Korea's intelligence agency responded by saying it was unpardonable that the DPRK should threaten its citizens.
Tonight, President Trump will meet with South Korean President Moon Jae-in for the first time at the White House. Now, the main goal is to get North Korea to abandon its rapidly expanding nuclear and missile programs. But the rogue nation's ambassador to the UN says North Korea will continue beefing up its nuclear arsenal regardless of sanctions or military pressure. This comes as 2 congressmen on both sides of the aisle are proposing a new law restricting American tourism to the country after the death of Otto Warmbier.
With increasing provocations from North Korea and inaction from China, much to the frustration of President Trump, now we're learning military options are on the table to handle the growing nuclear threat. In a press conference, Trump's national security advisor H.R. McMaster said, "The threat is much more immediate now, and so it's clear that we can't repeat the same failed approach of the past." That failed approach McMaster is referring to is former President Obama's efforts to pressure the country through crippling sanctions. But with continued weapons testings and American student Otto Warmbier's death at the hands of the Hermit Kingdom, McMaster says continuing that same approach would be insanity. Trump will be meeting with South Korea's newly elected President Moon Jae-in Thursday. He's vowed to stand firmly with Trump on the northern threat. Meanwhile, Trump, who once warmly embraced China, seems to have soured at their inaction. China, who is North Korea's wavering ally, hopes to use negotiation as a way towards peace. But the president tweeted their efforts haven't worked out.
Today, the Trump administration is continuing its efforts against the government of North Korea. Today, Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network has found the Bank of Dandong to be a foreign financial institution of primary money laundering concern under Section 311 of the USA Patriot Act. This bank has served as a gateway for North Korea to access the U.S. and international financial systems. While today's actions are directed at Chinese individuals and entities, we look forward to continuing working closely with the government of China to stop illicit financing involving North Korea.
Human Rights Watch says the U.S. isn't calling out some countries for using child soldiers, even after evidence suggests otherwise. The U.S. State Department releases a yearly list of countries that recruit or use child soldiers, and legislation says the countries listed can't get certain types of American military backing unless the president okays it. This year, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Mali, Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, and Yemen all made the list. But Human Rights Watch says Myanmar and Iraq should have been included. They were listed in 2016. Previous reports from the United Nations show both of those countries have used child soldiers. And a report from Reuters said U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson didn't list Myanmar or Iraq even after experts and diplomats recommended he should. But it's not just the Trump administration. Human Rights Watch had called out President Barack Obama for making too many exceptions and backing countries that used child soldiers. So why does all this matter? Well, it's one way to aggressively encourage countries to not use child soldiers.
A high-ranking member of the Philippine military says ISIS-linked terrorists in Marawi City have decapitated civilians. Rescuers recovered 17 civilian bodies from Marawi City on Wednesday, June 28, and Lieutenant Colonel Emmanuel Garcia texted reporters that 5 of them were decapitated. However, a civilian rescue worker told Reuters there was, quote, no proof of beheading. Military spokesman Joar Herrera also told Reuters he was unable to confirm if people had been beheaded. Members of the Mauti group seized Marawi City on May 23rd, forcing Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte to declare martial law on the island of Mindanao. The Mauti fighters are heavily armed and have managed to hold off the Philippine military for weeks. China donated thousands of guns to the Philippines on Wednesday to help free Marawi City, and China's ambassador to the Philippines announced more weapons will be delivered soon.
A Supreme Court stay okayed part of President Donald Trump's so-called travel ban, but a few words in it have spurred a big question. What's considered a bona fide relationship? So the U.S. State Department is defining it. Let's start with a relationship with a person living in the U.S. Those relationships include those of a parent, child, spouse, sibling, child-in-law, or parent-in-law. Multiple outlets report step-siblings and half-siblings are also okay. Family members outside of those, like grandparents, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, cousins, and fiancés, aren't considered close enough to grant entry. As for U.S. entities, foreign nationals who've accepted a job offer or are attending school in the States are allowed in. People who already have visas will be allowed into the country, and refugees with travel booked to the U.S. through July 6 will also be granted entry. The order goes into effect Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
The US has unveiled enhanced security measures for flights to the country designed to prevent expanding an in-cabin ban on laptops. EU and US officials say the measures could be introduced in the next 3 weeks. In March, the US banned laptops on flights to the US originating from 10 airports in 8 countries, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and Turkey.
With this announcement, we send a clear message that inaction is not an option. Those who choose not to cooperate or are slow to adopt these measures could be subject to other restrictions, including a ban on electronic devices on aircraft or even a suspension of their flights into the United States.
Airline trade groups are warning the changes might cause disruption. They could require additional time to screen passengers and personal electronic devices for possible explosives. Since laptops are widely used in flight by business class passengers, the airline industry had feared expanding the ban could cut into its revenue.
In the woods and dunes around Calais, 400 to 600 migrants sleep rough without running water or toilets. The French government closed down the squalid camp known as the Jungle 8 months ago. But migrants are trickling back to the northern port city, dodging police armed with batons and tear gas and awaiting any chance to attempt a crossing to the UK. France's Interior Minister has rejected charities' demands for a new reception centre in Calais and vowed to deploy riot police to contain the influx. Charities are giving out food, clothes and water where they can, but say police move them on. It's a haphazard affair without official backing, and charities expect numbers to surge in the coming weeks as summer kicks in and the weather improves.
A driver rammed his car into a gate at Brazil's presidential palace. Authorities said security forces fired warning shots when a driver sped toward the Alvorada Palace Wednesday, June 28th, without slowing down. Security then fired at the car to stop it. Officials took the driver into custody without injury. President Michel Temer was not in the Brasilia Palace at the time. On Monday, the country's top prosecutor charged Temer with corruption amid a massive political scandal involving top Brazilian officials. The prosecutor accused Temer of accepting bribes from JBS, the world's largest meatpacking company, in exchange for preferential treatment. The president has denied the allegations. Temer's approval ratings are reportedly the lowest of any Brazilian president in decades, and he faces increasing calls from critics to resign. Authorities said the driver who rammed the palace gate is a minor. Police are said to be investigating the matter.
There have been violent scenes on the streets of Buenos Aires as protesters clashed with riot police. Several people were arrested, although there's been no official confirmation of the numbers detained. Local media say the protesters are from a number of radical leftist groups in Argentina. They accuse President Mauricio Macri of stoking poverty and inequality through his free market policies. Macri has sought to push through austerity measures to get the debt-ravaged country's economy back on track. However, midterm elections in October could undo his plans.
On Thursday, Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a state of emergency over New York City's troubled public transit system and has requested that its new leader complete a series of urgent reviews of the agency's management and infrastructure. Rising delays and unreliable service has plagued the city's subways and commuter trains. On Tuesday, dozens of passengers were injured when a subway train derailed. Speaking at a conference for the MTA Genius Transit Challenge, Cuomo said that MTA Chairman Joe LaHoda has been asked to come up with a reorganization plan in 30 days and an equipment review in the next 60 days. Citing decades of underinvestment, deferred maintenance, and surging ridership, Cuomo said the state of the subway system is, quote, wholly unacceptable.
A major development in that case that made national headlines last year when armed protesters occupied a national wildlife refuge. An FBI agent is now facing charges accused of lying about the deadly encounter.
This morning, an alleged lie and an FBI agent facing criminal charges.
You want my blood on your hands?
Stemming from this attempt to arrest militia leader Robert Lavoy Finicum last year during a takeover at an Oregon wildlife refuge.
They're shooting.
Finicum and his passengers flee, then nearly hit a police roadblock.
Hang on.
That's when investigators say FBI agent W. Joseph Astorita fires twice, missing Finicum as he gets out, his hands up, a bullet tearing through the truck. But Astorita, a member of the FBI's elite hostage rescue team, allegedly told investigators he never pulled the trigger.
The actions of the FBI HRT in this case damaged the integrity of the entire law enforcement profession, which makes me both disappointed and angry.
Seconds later, state troopers shot and killed Finicum, saying he reached for a gun. Finicum's wife says, "My husband was shot in the back 3 times and should have been afforded his own due process before they killed him."
The cover-up is worse than the crime because the agent would not have been prosecuted for taking a shot if he felt that that vehicle driven by Finicum was a danger to the public.
Now, what is still not clear is why Astorita allegedly lied. Prosecutors say that will come out in court. The agent faces 5 felony counts in all. He's pleaded not guilty.
Police in Australia charged a top Vatican official with historical sexual assault offenses. Australian Cardinal George Pell serves as the Vatican's treasurer and reports directly to Pope Francis. He is one of the highest-ranking officials at the Vatican. Victoria Police didn't provide many details. Deputy Commissioner Shane Patton would only say Pell faces multiple charges and that there were multiple complaints. Pell was in Rome when the charges were announced. In a written statement, he strenuously denied all allegations.
I'm innocent of these charges. They are false.
An Australian police official confirmed an investigation into Pell last July after multiple allegations of abuse were made against the cardinal dating as far back as the 1970s. At the time, Pell called the allegations a scandalous smear campaign. Pell is now taking a leave of absence from the Vatican to return to Australia. He is scheduled to appear in court July 18th.
Well, don't mess with this soon-to-be mom, a suspected purse thief in North Carolina, learning the hard way as a pregnant woman runs him down in a Walmart parking lot. Take a look.
Jumped in the car, started in gear, and come across the curb and ran him over.
The suspect taken to the hospital for minor injuries, then hauled off to jail. He's facing several charges.
A video has been released showing CNN presenter Van Jones ridiculing the network's Russia coverage.
What do you think is going to happen this week? I mean, with the whole Russia thing.
The Russia thing is just a big nothing burger.
Really?
Yet another leak related to CNN from James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. Now, as you just saw in that clip, that was Van Jones, who briefly served in the Obama administration and is now a commentator for CNN. And in the clip, he says that the Russia thing is a nothing burger. Now, it's important to be clear here. We don't exactly know what he's referring to about the Russia thing. Could be the Russian investigation, could be the allegations about Trump. The context of the clip is not exactly clear. This leak comes on just in the aftermath of another recent leak from Project Veritas. And John Bonifield, an important producer for CNN, says that the Russia story is, in polite terms, nonsense. That was just recently released as well. Now, we here at RT, we've actually reached out to CNN to ask for their comment, and they have not replied. And it's important to note that these videos that are coming out are not without controversy. James O'Keefe is personally facing a $1 million lawsuit at the hands of a contractor he interviewed after he interviewed them, posing as someone else. And this was a contractor allegedly working with the Democratic Party.
Facebook's content rules are under scrutiny again. A recent ProPublica report gives greater insight about how Facebook determines who to protect from hate speech on the platform. The outlet obtained an internal presentation outlining Facebook's content rules. Basically, it protects some groups of people from harassment while leaving posts targeting other groups alone. Non-protected subsets of protected groups are fair game for targeting. One slide illustrated that a post attacking all white men should be taken down, while attacks on women drivers or black children are to be left up. This is just the latest publication of Facebook's internal documents about content moderation, including how they dealt with tricky legal situations like Holocaust denial and online extremism. Offensive content is increasingly putting Facebook and other social media giants at odds with governments around the world. A bill recently proposed in Germany would fine companies $53 million if they don't remove content quickly enough. The problem is only going to get more complex as Facebook's user base grows. The site recently passed 2 billion monthly users.
Bee populations have declined at alarming rates over the last 20 years, but researchers are just beginning to understand the impact of human activity on our pollinators. Scientists recently uncovered how one of our most commonly used insecticides is wiping out bees. A new study provides a clearer understanding about the specific threats neonicotinoids pose to bee populations. They were approved for commercial use in the 1990s and are used on nearly all corn and canola crops and about half of all soybeans. Beyond lowering bees' life expectancy, neonicotinoids reduce reproductive success and suppress bees' immune systems. Colonies were also more likely to permanently lose their queen after prolonged exposure. The scientists said they hope their findings will influence lawmakers in regulating insecticides. But some researchers note that neonicotinoids aren't the only cause of declining bee populations, citing other harmful factors like habitat loss, climate change, and the widespread use of other harmful pesticides. Mosquito-borne diseases kill approximately 725,000 people a year, but scientists are cracking down on these pests with some high-tech tools. One group of inventors created a mosquito-killing laser. The device can detect insects in its view and choose which ones to shoot down. Another firm created mutant mosquitoes. Scientists genetically modified males with faulty genes that cause their offspring to die soon after birth, and it's already had some success. Field studies showed this caused an 82% decline in mosquito populations. Researchers have also proposed infecting mosquitoes with fungus, since mosquitoes have developed resistances to lots of insecticides. One group of scientists took a strain of mosquito-killing fungi and combined it with toxins from spiders and scorpions to make it work more quickly. After 5 days, nearly none of the mosquitoes infected with the fungus could transfer malaria.
Severe storms spawned tornadoes across the Midwest Wednesday. A funnel cloud crossed this highway in Stuart, Iowa. Another touched down in the city, whipping up debris. An hour east in Pleasantville, a tornado shredded part of the roof on this home, tossing it across the yard and on top of cars. Storms in Lynn County, Iowa toppled this truck and uprooted trees. Doris Beeson saw the twister up close.
It happened so quick, and they always say it makes a roar sound. There was no sound. It was just upon us, and that was it.
Emergency officials say more than 25 buildings were damaged in Pierce County, Wisconsin, when a tornado moved through. At least one person was hurt. Dee Ossian was on her front porch with her 2 young grandchildren near Farragut, Iowa, when tornado sirens started wailing. They ran to their storm cellar.
It was like this. The wind was, it was hard to keep the boys down. That's what was so scary. I thought they were going to blow away.
Part of her roof is gone, but she says she's just thankful everyone's okay.
Never been so scared, and life is good. We're all okay. All this can be fixed.
The system that brought the tornadoes has passed through, but we're still not in the clear. There is a tornado threat again today for parts of Iowa, northern Missouri, and northeastern Kansas.